Hi, hello and welcome back to F1 Challenge VB. My name is Mephisto and our epic journey through the history of Formula 1 continues today with the second round of the 1960 season, the Monaco Grand Prix. But before we begin, I'd like to thank you all for your understanding. A few days ago, I released a short video explaining why I couldn't upload a special/bonus video in which I would have taken a look back at the first decade of Formula 1. And your reaction to that video was really heartwarming. I'm only thanking you now because the Argentine Grand Prix was already rendering when I made that video, so I was unable to officially thank you then. And that is why I'm doing it here. So once again, thank you for your understanding. The said video should be out either at the end of next week or the week after. It depends on how long it takes me to finish the script. But anyway, let's get back to the video you're all here for. The Monaco Grand Prix was held on the 29th of May. It had 24 entries, 16 of them took part in the race with 7 ending up retiring. The race consisted of 100 laps completed in 2 hours 53 minutes and 45 seconds. Sterling Moss started the race from pole with Brabham in 2nd, Brooks 3rd, Chris Bristow in 4th, Joe Bonnier 5th, and rounding off the top 6 was Graham Hill. After a phenomenal drive, Sterling Moss won the Monaco Grand Prix, Bruce McLaren finished in 2nd, 52.1 seconds behind Moss, Phil Hill took the 3rd spot, he was 1 minute 1.9 seconds behind the leader, Tony Brooks finished in 4th, he was 1 lap down, Joe Bonnier crossed the line in 5th, he was 17 laps down, and Ginther rounded off the top 5, he was a whopping 30 laps down and somehow was still classified as a finisher. The fastest lap was set by Bruce McLaren, it took him 1 minute 36.2 seconds to complete. Round 2 of the season sees us back on the streets of Monaco, where a lap starts off with a short sprint into turn 1, a tight right-hand hairpin. Be very careful through here, especially on the opening lap, as cars tend to bunch up quite heavily. Next we come through Saint-Devote, turn 2, a fast right-hander. Keep it nice and tight, but be careful not to hit the curbing on the inside as it could damage the suspension. We now go up the hill and into Massanet and Casino Square. Be wary of the bump on the exit out of Casino. It can very easily unsettle the car. Next we come into Mirabeau, a slow right-hander, followed almost immediately by the station hairpin. Take as wide a line as possible and don't apply too much power on the exit. Next is Portier, a slow right-hander. Once again, easy on the throttle as the car tends to oversteer through here. The track then opens up a bit as we come through the tunnel and eventually into the port chicane. Be careful through here as it is very easy to hit the walls. We then come through Tabac, a deceiving left-hander. Brake early and slow down more than you think you have to, otherwise you'll crash into the wall on the exit. But this brings us around onto the main straight, and that is a lap around the Monaco Street Circuit. And here we are in Monaco, coming around to set our first and only qualifying lap, and not because I was confident again, but because I am a numpty. I set a 139.7, and as much as I tried, I couldn't really go any faster. The car just doesn't work really well around Monaco, so yeah, that's pretty much it for qualifying for me, I guess. And here are the previous Monaco Grand Prix winners. Nino Farina won in 1950, and after that Higgs won everything else, so he's pretty much the master of Monaco at this point, right? Anyway, we have Gandebian on pole with Brabham in 2nd, Von Trips is 3rd, Phil Hill is 4th, Bianchi 5th with Willie Mays rounding off the top 6. Bruce McLaren is in 7th, Jim Clark 8th, 9th is Innes Ireland, followed by Henry Taylor in 10th. Sterling Moss is 11th, Richie Ginther 12th, 13th is Tony Brooks, followed by Graham Hill in 14th. 15th is Joe Bonnier, followed by Dan Gurney in 16th. 17th is held by Maurice Trintignant in his Scuderia Centro Sud. Then we have John Surtees in 18th. 19th is Andy Higgs, followed by Cliff Ellison in 20th. And bringing up the rear we have Ronald Flockhart and Chuck Day. So that's the grid lineup, and hopefully we'll have a good race. I'm not sure because, well, we've seen what happens in Monaco in the past, and well, I'm expecting everyone to retire before we even finish the lap, so but we'll have to see. Anyway, this is a very slow start and I lost all my positions despite what the counter says up in the left corner. I actually in last position because the acceleration of this Aston Martin is absolutely atrocious. But anyway, we come out of the hairpin and now run towards Saint-Devote, which surprisingly enough doesn't have cars strewn all across the track. That's very, very interesting. I'm quite impressed. No, that everyone managed to go through Saint-Devote without too much of a hassle. That really is impressive. I'm starting to believe that there's still hope for this circuit. Anyway, this is the replay of the start. As you saw how I lost all my positions again, this is mostly due to the fact that the Aston Martin has absolutely atrocious acceleration, and that's quite detrimental, especially at a track like this where you rely mostly on your acceleration rather than top speed. But anyway, what can you do? As we come around through Portier here and we see a bunch of cars turned upside down, so we already have some retirements. So despite the fact that they managed to survive through the first few corners, they didn't survive for long, as I pretty much expected really. So anyway, this is Von Trips coming through Portier and somehow managed to flip his car upside down. Bruce McLaren did the same, coming out of the station hairpin. Then Moss coming through Portier again clips the curb there, and that kind of flips the car upside down. This is Hill coming into the port chicane and does pretty much what we generally see happening through here. This is Jack Brabham who comes through the port chicane, crashes really hard and loses his rear left. Then we have Gendebien, who I have no idea what he was trying to do, crashes into the hay bales and loses his front left. So does Lucien Bianchi, and there we see a Scuderia Centro Sud flying into the bay. It was that of Maurice Trintignant, well, the only Scuderia Centro Sud actually. As we now start lap 2, chasing after Chuck Day in his Scarab F1. We are in 13th as a result of all those retirements. Right behind us is Joe Bonnier. I have no idea when I managed to overtake him. But anyway, as we come through Massanet here, we see Henry Taylor there in his Yeoman Credit Racing kind of getting stuck. Not entirely sure how he managed to do that. As we take a look at a replay of Jim Clark, who comes through Portier and flips his car upside down. Then we see Henry Taylor, who kind of tried to overtake me on the inside, kind of cut the track there and, well, ended up paying the price for that. This is Cliff Ellison coming around and flipping his car upside down. And then we have Chuck Day in his Scarab F1 coming through the port chicane, flies into the bay, and he is out of the race as well. As we now start lap 3, chasing after John Surtees. We are in 9th at the moment. Behind us is still Joe Bonnier. As I get really close to John Surtees, maybe we'll be able to go for a pass coming through the casino square. I'm hoping. I look at the outside there, but there's no real chance. But I flip it on the inside coming into the casino square, and we move up into 8th. That was quite an interesting maneuver, I think. Quite a good overtaking maneuver, I would say. As we now take a look at a replay of Innes Ireland, who flips his Lotus upside down, and he is out of the Monaco Grand Prix. We now move on to lap 4, chasing after Graham Hill, who is 14 seconds up the road at the moment. Surtees is still behind us, following us closely, but we are in fact slowly pulling away from him. This is a replay of Willie Maurice, who crashes his Ferrari through the port chicane, and well, you saw the rest. He flew into the bay and he is out. And we are now looking at Dan Gurney, who is entering the pit, and because I'm showing footage of this, well, you know what's going to happen. He is actually going to retire. I have no idea why he would come into the pits on lap 3 or 4, whatever that was. As we now move on to lap 5, and we saw another Yeoman Credit Racing car parked sideways on the track. And here is a replay of that. It was Tony Brooks who lost control of his car coming into Massanet. He then starts driving in the opposite direction, very dangerous on a track like this. He then proceeds to crash his car into the walls until he breaks his front left, and that's the end of him. And on lap 6 I noticed something really interesting. The AI was going through the pits to race instead of going through the chicane. That's really interesting. I'm all for, that means that the car, there will still be people left in the race, that I'm all for that, I don't mind. As on lap 12 I'm being lapped by Ron Flockhart, who is leading the race at the moment. Richie Ginther is second, some 20 seconds up the road, and that's the person who I'm chasing after. And on lap 16 we are looking at a replay of Ron Flockhart as he comes around to set the fastest lap of the race, a 132 point something, I'm not quite sure, but we'll see that at the end of the race, I guess. However, on lap 19 he flips it, Flockhart flips his car upside down, and he is out of the Monaco Grand Prix and out of the lead of the race, which is absolutely devastating for him. Obviously that's good news for us. And that was a replay of Flockhart flipping his car. And on lap 20 once again we see, I caught up to Ginther and we saw him go through the pits. However, he didn't stop. He is actually using that as part of the racing track, which is quite interesting. However, I managed to overtake him, and that allowed us to move into the lead. However, coming into the hairpin I kind of mess up my line, and he manages to get back in front of us. So we are now back on the chase, although he pulled away quite quickly there. On lap 22 I once again managed to catch up to him. He once again goes through the pits. I take the inside line to avoid crashing into him as he comes out of the pit. I hit the wall on the exit out of Tabak there, and that kind of put me in a bad position, and which allows Ginther to once again take the lead away from me. Quite a good battle between myself and Ginther here at Monaco. I didn't expect to battle anyone, especially not on lap 23 as we come through the casino square here, and I go on the inside once again and do a absolutely fantastic overtake. I really like overtaking through that corner. It really looks nice. However, coming into Mirabeau, Ginther once again overtakes me and is once again in the lead of the race. Lap 23 now, and Ginther once again goes through the pits, and I once again manage to overtake him. However, I go very fast through Tabak and hit the walls. However, this time I managed to keep my position. Somehow, I'm not entirely sure how, but we are in the lead for the time being. Hopefully we can keep it all the way to the end of the race, as I once again mess my line through turn 1 there and go a bit wide, but that's okay because I managed to keep my position. Then on lap 34, which is the final lap of the race, I messed up my something happened. I locked up, spun the car, and then the engine stalled. However, it started up once again. I don't really know what's happening then. I kept stalling the engine somehow, 2 or 3 times there, and that was Surtees, who ends up retiring because of all of this. However, after a while, my engine decided to work again properly, and so we get to finish the race. And here's a replay of John Surtees, who kind of damages his suspension due to this and has to retire. Again, I'm not really sure why the engine kept stalling. I don't know why it got lit up again, but I took advantage of that, and we eventually will get to finish the race. However, that won't be true for Surtees. However, he will classify as a finisher, as he did complete 90% of race distance. And here we are on lap 34, coming around to complete the race, and here are the race results. So Higgs wins, Ginther is in second, Hill third, and well, you saw the rest. And here are the retirements. A lot of people have retired in this race. However, there were 4 people who actually managed to complete, 4 or 5 people who actually managed to complete the race. So that's absolutely fantastic. We haven't seen something like that since the 1950 Monaco Grand Prix, so that's kind of reassuring. Yes, there weren't too many people finishing, but at least there were some people finishing. At least there was some competition between myself and Richie Ginther, and Flockhart to some extent until he, well, retired. But anyway, here are the career statistics, and this was Andy's 87th Grand Prix. His best start is from first, has 4 pole positions, has set 15 fastest laps, his best finishes in first, has completed 62 races, 54 of them in the points, has won 33 Grand Prix, 4 at the Indianapolis 500, 6 in Monaco, has 7 championships under his belt, has scored a total of 369 points, has retired 25 times, has experienced 2018 out of 2,421 laps, has 6 bronze trophies, 9 silver trophies, 33 gold trophies, and as an extension, 33 podiums. And here is a quick look at the driver standings, and there's a small change here. This was suggested by Scandinavian, the person who suggested a lot of things for this series actually up until now. And what he suggested is instead of putting the points scored at each race, I should instead put the position in which each driver finished. So that's how it is going to be. If this is confusing to you and would rather like me to switch back to the old way of doing the standing tables, please let me know. But if you prefer it this way, then we'll continue doing it this way. So anyway, Andy Higgs takes the lead of the championship with Brabham in second, Tony Brooks and Ginther fighting for third, Gandebian and Hill fighting for fifth. The last person to score points is Sterling Moss in 10th. And at the very bottom of the standings we have Phil Hill. So those are the driver standings. Let's now move on to the constructors. And here I haven't did the change. I decided to keep the old system because of how the scoring system works in the constructors standings. It would become very, very confusing very quickly if I would do it the way I changed the drivers. But anyway, Aston Martin take the lead of the constructor standings. Cooper are in second. Yoman Credit Racing are fighting for third with Ferrari. Owen Racing Organization are fifth. Sixth are Team Lotus, and the last team to score points is Rob Walker's team. Anyway, our next race is the Indianapolis 500. The last Indianapolis 500 to be part of the Formula 1 Championship. So I guess this is going to be quite an important race. Maybe. Perhaps. Who knows? Well, it's important because it's the final time the Indy 500 counted towards the Formula 1 Championship, which in and of itself is a weird concept considering that the Indianapolis 500 was raced to completely different regulations, and that kind of shows because only the drivers could score points there, the constructors didn't. So yeah, anyway, that is the end of the Monaco Grand Prix. Quite an interesting race, and finally we've seen more than just Andy finishing, so that's quite reassuring. Hopefully we will see more of that in the future. But anyway, that is the end of this video. An interesting race, and I'm hoping to see more of it, because interestingly enough, racing is more fun when you actually race against people and not against yourself. So that is that, I guess. Once again, that is the end of the video. Don't forget to vote for next season's team, link is in the description. I also have a second channel where I will be playing all sorts of different games. At the moment I'm doing a playthrough of Diablo 2 Lord of Destruction and IL-2's Thermavic 1946. So if you're interested in any of that, there is a link in the description to that as well. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you all so much for watching, and as always, stay sharp.